Now, here today, I'm going to be giving my prediction for the NBA Finals. And I have said, throughout this entire 2 month NBA playoff journey, ever since the start of the first round, when these Boston Celtics, they did not have to play Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. I thought that was a huge break for Boston. Then in the second round, they did not have to deal with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley together in Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell, of course, gets hurt later in the series. And then in the conference finals, Tyrese Halliburton goes down. He misses the last two games in Indiana. Boston has gone 5 games against Miami. They won 5 games against Cleveland. They swept the Indiana Pacers. Now they're getting Kristaps Porzingis back. They did not need him to finish off Miami. They did not need him to finish off Cleveland. They did not need him to finish off Indiana. And now they are going against, as Stan Van Gundy said multiple times during the Western Conference Finals, maybe the most dynamic backcourt ever in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And it's funny because we have talked about Kyrie Irving for this entire postseason as like he died for 8 years and then have come back to life. And we have felt so sorry for Kyrie when really what Kyrie Irving has done post 2016 is a lot of it's fault of his own. Leaving LeBron in Cleveland to go to Boston was his own decision because he thought he was going to be the man. Leaving Boston to go join Kevin Durant in Brooklyn was his decision. His semantics in Brooklyn were all his decision. And even last year when he got to Dallas, him and Luka, it took about a year. It took about to this year's trade deadline when they got Gafford, they got PJ Washington, and sort of redid their bench a little bit along with Derek Lively, the draft pick they got in this year's NBA draft to add some much needed size for this Mavericks team. But it took Luka and Kyrie time to get acclimated. But now that they have, Kyrie is sort of back into that role that he was alongside LeBron in Cleveland, which is I'm not the number one. I am the number two. I will be your sidekick. And it's not, Luca turn, Kyrie turn, his turn, my turn. It is whoever has the hot hand, whoever has the right matchup, whoever is feeling it, often goes and attacks. And sometimes in games, it feels like Luca disappears, then it feels like Kyrie disappears, and they both sort of come alive in the fourth quarter. I think when you look at these NBA finals, it's fascinating because Dallas is definitely on the harder road. They went to 6 games in the first round with the Clippers. They went to 6 games in a very tough second round series against Oklahoma City. You could make an argument that Minnesota may have been their easiest series out of the first three they played. And that might have been because Minnesota could have been out of gas from going to war with the Denver Nuggets. But my thing about the Dallas Mavericks is this: they are very Luka dependent, they are very Kyrie dependent. I think both those guys have to combine for between 60 and 90 points scored. That is, anywhere between, maybe 30 each a game to give yourself a chance and contribute, another 20 to 25 in the assist categories, from a PJ Washington, from a Tim Hardaway Jr., who was benched at the end of the last series against Minnesota, to a Gafford, to a Lively. Like, I think Dallas is going to need more contributions because we know Boston, and this is where the conversation has started begun about Boston, about how analytically efficient they are. And most of that is because of the amount of 3 pointers they make. Now, this Boston Celtics team, they are not a historically great team. And the reason why they're not a historically great team is because they don't have a Hall of Famer currently on their team. Jason Tatum is not currently a Hall of Famer. Jaylen Brown is not currently a Hall of Famer. Al Horford is not currently a Hall of Famer, in my opinion, and so on and so on. I just think, again, their efficiency is so great because of the way they can shoot from three. And you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who you are pretty much banking on will give you at least 50 points a night. I think Luka and Kyrie will, again, at least match that, if not overtop that, in order to beat Boston in this series. Because a lot like Denver, which their role players did not show up in the last 2 games against Minnesota. But for Boston, when you have a veteran like Drew Holiday, And that may have been the move. And, we talked about it when Boston made the move for Drew Holiday. I said they were right there with Milwaukee. I thought, a healthy Giannis, a healthy Damian Lillard, if they got all the pieces together, I thought Milwaukee might have been a little bit better than Boston. But Drew Holiday has basically replaced Marcus Smart on the defensive end, and he's a more efficient, a more reliable, and a better offensive player, quite frankly, than Marcus Smart was. You add him to a grown-up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown that don't really care about who gets the credit. You add that with Derek White, who has been a knockdown shooter, Al Horford, who can have big games. Went from a post player to basically just stands at the 3-point line and knocks him down. Now you're adding another 7-footer in Kristaps Porzingis. Peyton Pritchard can knock down shots. Boston just has a lot more people, I believe, that can knock down shots. They're going to be more consistent. The other interesting thing I think about this series is Boston as Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and as we mentioned, some other guys like Drew Holiday that you could throw at Kyrie. Those two wings they can throw at Luka Doncic. Dallas is going to have Luka play defense, and I don't know if he consistently do it for a 7-game series. Again, I do feel like Luka and Kyrie are probably the two best players on both sides in this series, which would generally give Dallas the edge. I just think we've seen it this postseason. We've seen stars sort of cancel each other out. We've seen role players be the difference makers, and I think Boston's role players will be more consistent than Dallas in this series. I think the other interesting part of it is I don't think home field advantage matters that much in this series because both of these teams have been better on the road than they have at home this postseason. Saying that, I think it would be very tough for Dallas to win 4 out of 5 against the Celtics. If they go down 2-0 in this series, it could be a 5 to a 6 game series. My official prediction is this will be the first game 7 of the NBA Finals since Kyrie Irving hit the greatest shot in NBA history over Steph Curry when the score was tied at 89 with under a minute to go in 2016. It is strange to me, and this is the second largest gap in the history of the NBA. The largest was 11 seasons from 1994 to 2005 that we have not had a game 7 in the NBA Finals. And NBA playoff ratings as a whole down about 15% this postseason. We've only had 3 game 3s, and I've already talked about this and the fact the Cavs Magic series nobody really gave a crap about outside of those two cities, Cleveland and Orlando. Nobody believed that they were going to beat Boston. You had an Indiana New York game 7 that really did not feel as big because of the fact that New York was pretty much banged up and Indiana, shot the lights out of the gym. It was pretty much over. We only have had one real game 7 in these playoffs, I believe, and that's the Minnesota Denver. So I am hoping for it. I think it's going to go there. I think we'll go back to the American Airlines Center in Dallas, tied at 1 game apiece. I think Boston will probably win 1 game there in Dallas. I think we'll go to a game 5 in the TD Garden where the series will be tied 2 games apiece. I think we end up making it to a game 7. I think either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown will kick it out to Derek White with under a minute left, and Derek White will make a big 3-point shot in the corner to give the Boston Celtics their first NBA championship since 2008. Of course, Celtics on this stage for the first time since 2010. Dallas on this stage for the first time since 2011. So even though we've seen these teams in the finals before, these are two completely different iterations of the Mavericks and the Celtics. Even though, of course, the Celtics did make it in 2022. I apologize for saying 2010. They did make it in 2010. They also made it in 2022. They're looking for the first championship since 2008. At the end of the day, I think Luka and Kyrie are going to be great. I think they have to be better than what Tatum and Brown do. I don't think it's sustainable. And I think that even though, again, the Mavericks may have the 2 best players in the series, ultimately, the depth of the Boston Celtics will over prevail. I have Celtics in 7. Jason Tatum will get his first NBA MVP in the finals. Like that clip from the Friends World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon's World podcast right here on YouTube.